how you have to be confident, all those things, they fly out of the window because of this imposter syndrome, which if it is not exposed, we live with it, and if it is not expelled, then it cripples us. It brings fear, and as we know, fear is the monster, but I'll end with that later. But the imposter syndrome strips you, of all your achievements, and you start feeling like you don't deserve to be there. Even when you've had some achievements and some accomplishments, and this I share from a personal experience. Having started Legacy International School, some may know, some may not know, but it flourished and it reached an enrollment of 200 students, and at that time we were charging the hard dollar. It was just at the beginning of dollarization, and so at the beginning of every 3 months or 4 months, you would be handling 200,000 USD cash. But life happens, even as our Director of Ceremonies, whom I forgot to thank, explained. Thank you, Master of Ceremonies. Life happens, and when life happens, the imposter syndrome comes upon you. It's an imposter. It's a false identity that seeks to impose itself upon you, upon your person, upon your personhood, upon anything and everything that you've ever known and ever have been and ever have accomplished. It makes you start feeling like you don't deserve to be there. How can you be the head of a big church like this, being widowed? How can you even accept this invitation, ZNCC, when Legacy International School is no longer running? Because after the accident, we had to shut down, where we called it a sabbatical for a better name, but in business terms, it's just shut down, literally, because it was an owner-run business. Yes, we had, all the infrastructure with qualified staff, qualified directors, but we also felt maybe also in honor of the man of God who was a co-director, it was a noble thing to do. And so the imposter syndrome makes you start feeling so small that you don't even deserve to be a speaker at the ZNCC conference. What are you going to talk about? And it was the first time that I heard of this, because I was just sharing with my daughter, who herself is a very successful social entrepreneur. And I said, "Sweetie, look, this is what they just did." And she said, "Of course, Mom. I think you're just going through this imposter syndrome." I said, "What's that?" That's when I started researching. Believe it or not. She says, the imposter syndrome just makes you forget all the things that you've achieved in life. Everything that you've accomplished. Either because of something that's happened to you, something that you're going through in a family setting or even in a work setting, but also it could simply just be a decision you made to change course. But as a result, you are in an in-between season. And so if you're in this season, it doesn't mean that your past achievements don't count. It doesn't mean that your future will not be better than the past. I started to look at the infrastructure, the capital development infrastructure that we put up for Legacy International School, a double-story building with 10 classrooms, huge classrooms, and how it's actually giving us passive income. In actual fact, we're sitting, if I can confess, better off now without running the school because it's stress-free. You just let it out and it's passive income through the rentals. And so, but you forget all those things because you're no longer the one on the go, because things have changed basically in your life. So you can be in that in-between season, and so your past, it doesn't mean that your past achievements don't count anymore. It doesn't mean that your future will not be better than the past. You don't lose your experience if you happen to be going through that in-between season. You don't lose your skills. You don't lose your value. that you created. And just because you're no longer doing that specific business, you don't lose your identity, you don't lose your purpose, you don't lose who you are and who you can be. You don't lose opportunities. The imposter syndrome comes upon you because environments change, economic environments, climates change, the market can change. You have to adapt. You can't just stay rigid. You can't just stay there and stick it out. And you're always supposed to adapt. You always, I'm sure, know you have to innovate. You have to cut your losses where you need to. And the imposter syndrome is a very debilitating syndrome. It must be exposed and it must be expelled. So as we speak, because we've changed industry from the education industry, now going into construction industry, we're looking forward to bigger and better and less, hassle-free. I was listening to my colleague there in education. Being in the education industry is a big hassle for the reasons that she mentioned and more. And but with the construction industry that we're going into, in partnership with the developer, we've got our land, we've got our plans, and all that now you need to be doing is just selling stands. $19,000 for 400 square meter stand is good money when you can get 20 stands out of that piece of land. And there's a lot more that you can do with it. But the imposter syndrome, like I'm saying, when I was invited, made me forget that this is what I'm in an in-between season. I know where I've been, and I have not yet arrived where I want to be, but I have a vision, because that vision is bigger than me. That vision is a vision to build not just my family, not just my church, but my nation. But the imposter syndrome comes upon you to cripple you. So, what's important? What do you do when you are in that in-between season? I'll just share exactly my life story, and I hope that it will help somebody. But the important thing to do in that season is to regroup yourself, like regain yourself, your momentum, who you are. It's not to beat yourself down, it's not to strip yourself of all your achievements, your accomplishments, your experience, because that can never be taken away from you. And so if you allow the imposter syndrome, it will strip you of all that so that you have no confidence in where you are going. So this is not the time to start devaluing yourself, because again, your confidence will just take a sound very fast. And if anything, this is the time to extend your reach. This is the time to expand your horizon as an entrepreneur. If anything, you should be re-strategizing. Like I'm saying, I already did, but I was not aware of this imposter syndrome, that it could actually cripple my efforts until. So I'm very grateful for this opportunity, because it made me self-introspect and realize this is where I was now at. And I need to pick myself up and be where I ought to be. Re-strategizing, staying focused on purpose. I always insist that purpose preserves. When you have a sense of purpose, when you're a woman of purpose, that purpose preserves you. It doesn't matter what you go through, purpose preserves. So never lose your sense of purpose. Keep your eyes open for new opportunities, because they will definitely come. The world is full of problems, and every problem that you solve is money coming your way. We are solving an accommodation crisis, particularly for the middle class. So money, as we know, is a reward for solving problems. So I'm here to say you have exactly what it takes to jump upon that opportunity, to maximize on those opportunities. Just look out for them. A lot of people are stuck in that industry or in that business, and they're afraid to start something new, afraid to try something new in case it fails. We ought to know there are many big business people, and how many of them have failed, I don't know how many times. But the imposter syndrome makes you feel like a failure. makes you feel like you are failing and you are a failure. But of course we know that just because you have failed in one business does not make you a failure. And failing does not make anybody a failure. It actually makes you a better entrepreneur because you're now learning from your mistakes. And so the economy changes, we talked about that, the market changes, the market is no longer allowing you to operate in that specific industry. Maybe your family circumstances change and they don't allow you to operate. But the last thing that I want to say is you have to incorporate faith. This is where faith kicks in. Faith that you cross that Red Sea. Because you know where you've been, you've left the place where you used to be, your comfort zone, so to speak, or else you just made a decision. You realize you have to leave where you are and you ought to change course, but you haven't arrived. And where you want to go, there is a big barrier and you don't know how you're going to cross this big barrier. This is where faith kicks in. Trusting that you'll get the right opportunity, trusting that you'll get the right partnership. The right opportunity will definitely come. The right door will open up. You will be able to cross that river. So don't tell me you don't have faith, because it takes faith for you to sit on that chair. You did not check the chair first. You sat on it, you just believed it will hold you. That's faith. Yeah, you know, it takes faith for you to fly to Bulawayo. Get onto that flight, you don't even know the young man or the young woman in the cockpit. You just have faith that they'll take you there. That's faith. So everybody has a measure of faith. So don't you tell yourself you don't have faith. All I'm here to tell you is that with faith, you either use it or you lose it. But I'm here to encourage somebody to use it. Because if you don't, then the imposter syndrome will come upon you and bring fear. But I'm here to say fear must be fought. Why? And what kind of fear? Fear of failure, fear of the future, fear of shame. But I'm here to remind somebody that fear cripples you. Fear incapacitates you. And fear must be fought. And we fight fear with faith. You fight fear with everything that is in you. You fight fear with more powerful weapons than fear, because it in itself is a silent killer. So the weapons of our warfare, they're not carnal, but they're mighty through God to the pulling down of strongholds. So daily you have to declare to yourself, I can do this, I can do this, I can do all things, through Christ who strengthens me, if he is the source of your strength. I'll share before I sit down, my testimony with the marriage ministry that Apostle Charles and I were very passionate about. And so when he went home, I thought that was the end, of the ministry. And how does a widow teach couples? You just basically go through this whole disorientation until a friend of mine called me to Port Elizabeth, and she just said, my pastor just come, spend 2 weeks, and she booked this 5-star hotel just overlooking the ocean, and said, just bring anybody you want. And I went there with my last-born daughter. And so it was in one of those evenings where we were having dinner. And she calls me Sister Petunia. You can tell which tribe she is. Sister Petunia, your marriage was such a source of inspiration to all of us. So I said, yeah, I know, thank you, but it's all finished. And then she got up and she said, no, it's not. If anything, it is just the beginning. I said, what do you mean? She says, you are now more qualified, actually, to teach us and to teach many about marriage, more than some of us who are still in marriage. Because it's also we don't know how our marriages will end. But you know how your marriage started, and you know how it ended. It's a sealed deal. It's complete. You never broke covenant, and you are the one, more than me, who is still in marriage, that has every right and all authority to teach on marriages. Because, yes, I'm just talking about some of my experiences that have helped me to overcome the imposter syndrome. She said, it does not take away your testimony. It does not take away your experience. It does not take away your anointing. It does not take away the grace to minister to other struggling marriages. So get up and go. And ever since then, I came back home rejuvenated. And ever since then, big platforms have opened for me to minister to pastors and their wives. More than when Apostle Charles was alive. And I just share what I know because I was married for 34 years. The first 3, very rough, but the rest, I mean, sweeter than honey. I don't think honey even tastes as good as our marriage did. And so, yes, you have a lot to share even from that experience. So just because you are in an in-between season does not mean that it's over. It's the time, I repeat, to fight that imposter in you, that spirit that actually is fraudulent. It wants to defraud you of, I repeat, your confidence and of who you are and of the grace that is on your life and of the gifts of God that are upon you. So don't allow it, because fear must be fought with faith. And daily, you have to increase your faith. You have to grow your faith. Those that have never been in desperate situations where you are bobbing between life and death, where your surgeon comes and looks you in the eye and says, you know that this operation that we're going to do, we are going to just do our best, don't you? You know it's 50% chances. And this is like the 4th major operation that you're going through. And you've had 4 pints of blood, and after being in denial that what if I get HIV and and what have you, and the doctor telling you, if we don't give you this blood, we don't know whether we'll still have you by Monday, and this is Saturday. And so if you have been in that in-between season, you will understand the power of faith. But faith is not a feeling. Faith is something that you work out. It's a workout. Faith is just like the gym. You work it out. You work the word, and the word will work for you. Because faith cometh by hearing, and hearing by the word of God, where you literally, or whatever other source of inspiration inspires you, where literally you